Greetings, Taku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all my review of the Supergirl series premiere right here on Otaku Assemble! Weekly, and finally here to bring you all the first in my weekly Supergirl episode reviews. And this is my review of episode 1 entitled Pilot. Now, originally, I had planned to do an expectations video for the upcoming season of Supergirl, and I do apologize for not getting that out before this review. However, I will say that after seeing the pilot, in hindsight, I don't think my expectations video would have been as informed as I would have liked it to be. And this is what I mean. Prior to the pilot, I only saw the first full trailer that they ever released for Supergirl. I have read a couple of articles, but by and large, I tried to stay away from any type of news in regards to the show, because typically when it comes to a show, especially a brand new show, I want to go in there fresh, you know? Now, I did see that first full trailer, and I did have some reservations about it. I thought, you know, going in, I'm like, well, I mean, it's great that Supergirl is getting a TV show, and of course, you know, one of my favorite Superman, my favorite comic book superhero of all time, you know, and Supergirl, she's part of that franchise. So, of course, I was stoked. I was invested because of the character. But just the things that I caught in that trailer, I'm like, you know what? It's great she's getting a show, and it seems like the show is geared toward a primarily female audience, which is good because, let's face it, ladies, you girls, y'all don't really have a show that y'all can call your own. You know what I mean? I mean, we have what? We have Gotham, we have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we have Flash, we have Arrow. Now, yeah, we did get Agent Carter, which was great, but, you know, there was no super heroine TV series yet. This was going to be the first. And I just kept looking at that trailer like, you know what? This might not be made for me, you know. I might not be this show's targeted demographic. I might not be able to get into it. However, lo and behold, that was not necessarily the case. I really did enjoy the pilot for what it was. I can already see some very interesting possibilities in it. Yes, I do have some comments on certain things, but I think what we got in the pilot, I would say it's a good start. It's a good start. So let's go ahead and let's jump into the episode. So let's talk about some things. All right. So first and foremost, we open up the episode with what I thought was a pretty well written narration from Kara, but also we got the origin story, and immediately I can see the differences. You know, what the writers have decided to adapt from the source material to create their own original story in a way. The changes to the origin story. So the biggest change, number one, Kara is much younger than she was, Kara is much younger than she usually appears to be in the comics at the time of the destruction of Krypton. Typically in the comics, Kara is about 15, 16 when Krypton is destroyed. Now in the original comics, mind you, Kara wasn't even born when Krypton was destroyed. Kara wasn't even born in the original Supergirl comics, but the more popular conception of the character, she's a teenager at the time. So what they've decided, number one, they aged her down. They made her a little girl. Number two, Kara's ship does not make it to Earth first, and she is not frozen in suspended animation like she still is. That much is true. But in the popular Supergirl origin story, Kara comes to Earth and she's frozen through some means or some way. I know that, let's see, in the Bruce Timm universe, Superman the Animated Series, Justice League, in that adaptation, I think Kara was frozen in ice. In Smallville, she was stuck in a dam. I remember from Batman Superman Apocalypse, her ship crash landed on an asteroid from Krypton. She was stuck in a debris field. So there have been different variations of the origin story depending on whatever adaptation you have. And once again, in the original comics, Kara wasn't in suspended animation at all because she wasn't even born until years after Krypton's destruction. This series, they changed things up. She was stuck in the Phantom Zone. I'm like, okay, that is interesting. I say, all right, that's real interesting. Okay, and sure enough, it played out the way I thought it would. So hang on to that because we're going to come back to that. Okay, so Kara's ship is stuck in the Phantom Zone. She finally does make it to Earth, and she's rescued by Clark, by Kal-El, by Superman, but 24 years later. So Clark is already a grown man, and he's already Superman, and he's the one that saves Kara. Okay, there are some versions of that origin story where that does happen, but that time lapse, I'm like, whoa, 24 years, and she's still a little girl. And then he's the one that brings her to the Danvers, to her adoptive parents, which, for the record, Dean Cain and Helen Slater playing her adoptive parents. The second I saw that, I lost my shit. I'm like, oh yeah, that's so fucking cool. And for those of you all who don't know, Dean Cain played Superman in Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, and Helen Slater played Supergirl in the, I think it was what, the 93 Supergirl? Or no, was it 90? Or was it 92? The 92, the original Supergirl live action movie. She also played Clark's mother, Laura, his biological mother, on Smallville. And of course, Dean Cain played a villain on Smallville. So the fact that they keep bringing these actors back is awesome. I saw that, I was like, yes. So anywho, and then after Kara's place with the Danvers, then we get another 12-year time skip. So now, okay, so already there's a difference there because Kara, with this adaptation, she grew up on Earth. And Clark is so much, I mean, you're talking, 24 years she was in suspended animation and then 12 with the Danvers. So Clark is 36 years old. I'm like, whoa, we're dealing with a much older Superman this time around. Because typically in most Superman stories, Clark is about 30. So a little bit older, but not much. So anywho, so yeah, we are dealing with Kara, a Kara who has actually grew up on Earth to some degree. Now that will be my first, I guess you could say, my first reservation about the show, or the one thing that I'm a little bit let down on, and that is the idea that Kara was not old enough to retain most of her experiences on Krypton, and so she is an Earth girl in the same way that Clark, was an Earth boy. She grew up on Earth. She has an affiliation with it. She has more familiarity with it. And that rendition I care a little bit less for. And I'll tell you guys why. I always enjoyed the stories. It was, like I said, it was the same way it was done in the Timverse. It was the same way it was done in Smallville. It was the same way it was done in Superman Batman Apocalypse. And in was it the Jeff Johns run? Because I did read comics where it's written like this too. Here's the thing. Kara has always been used as sort of Clark's his reference to Krypton. Because Kara is typically written as being 15, 16 at the time of Krypton's destruction, she grew up on Krypton. So she was always written as that was Clark's reference. Even more so than the Fortress of Solitude ever could be, because Kara was there. She lived there. In that essence, you get that feeling that she really is his last living relative. To have a living reference for their home world, that was very important. Also, Kara growing up on Krypton, that provided her with that previous culture that she had. And so usually in those Supergirl stories, you had the whole acclamation, the whole idea that she has to learn to live on Earth. And it's more than just learning how to use her powers. It's about fitting in. It's about not necessarily conforming, but learning Earth's ways. And those growing pains, that learning period is what I always appreciated most about Kara, because she brought a different perspective than Clark ever could. She had a bigger cultural backpack than he ever did, because that was all Clark ever knew. Kara, that wasn't the case. And so this time around, Kara growing up on Earth, we don't get that. And so I felt and that's the first letdown, I would say, for this adaptation, is that we don't get that from Kara. We will be getting her learning her powers, learning to become a superhero. Yes, we'll be getting that from her, but we won't be getting the more personal growth and development bit in terms of her environment. We won't get that. Alright, so after the time skip, we see Kara, and we pretty much get the status quo. We see her in an everyday. But of course, as you guys know, writing 101, the first question whenever you're trying to write a story, whenever you have to think of a conflict, why this day? What is so significant about this moment that you decided to start the story? And we find out about halfway through the episode that this is the day that her adoptive sister Alex, her plane, gets, well, at first they thought it was engine failure, but then we find out, no, it was sabotage. Someone was trying to kill her. So that was the event that was the call to action. That was the thing that was different from any other day, and that was the thing that called Kara to act. And so Kara, of course, she saves the plane, she saves her sister, but that one event, that is the thing that kickstarts the rest of the episode and sets up what I think pretty well the rest of the season. So this is the main conflict of the episode, and this is the main conflict of what I believe is going to be for the rest of the season. Apparently, we find out that when Kara landed on Earth, when Clark saved her, well, she, some way, somehow, she escaped the Phantom Zone. Well, guess what? So did a ship of criminals from the Phantom Zone. And I think they mentioned, it was somewhere in the hundreds of these aliens were on Earth, because that's why, what was it? It's the DEO. I think the DEO, I think, the Department of, I got my reference, guys, don't worry, I got my reference. It is, correction, I had my reference. Silly phone, tricks of kids. Anyway, but I think it's like the Department of Extraterrestrial Ordnance or something like that. Oh my goodness, guys, come on. I'm just seeking. Okay, anyway. So anyway, we find out that Kara, for all intent and purpose, has been under surveillance the entire time she's been on Earth. Why? Because when she escaped the Phantom Zone and she made it to Earth, so did the criminals from the Phantom Zone. That event, that major, alien landing, that set up this this department for extraterrestrial defense, if you will. And these guys have pretty much they've been doing surveillance. They've been keeping an eye, or they at least have been trying to track all of these criminals from the Phantom Zone since that has happened. So these guys have been operating 12 years, we're talking. And they've also been keeping an eye on Kara that entire time. Now, here's the funny thing. They did mention, they said that there was already suspicion going on after Clark, after Superman arrived in their world. But then they said it's like, no, with your landing, that's when the department was born and whatnot. Anywho, so Kara finds out her sister's been working for this department the entire time. That creates a rift between them two, because she thinks her sister used her in order to get a job, meanwhile been keeping an eye on her the entire time. Which we actually find out, it's like, yeah, that was the reason why she got that position. Why? Because she had a personal affiliation with said one of those aliens. But here's the other thing that Kara learns. Here's another thing that Kara learns, because of course she had no idea that there were, criminals from the Phantom Zone on Earth. Apparently these guys they've been playing it safe, they've been hiding in the wings, they've been, biding their time. Now apparently they're planning something and they're starting to move. So now Kara is placed in a position where she does have to act. Why? Because one of them tried to kill her sister. So by episode's end, of course, she confronts the criminal. She manages to defeat him and save the day. Okay, that's all fine and dandy. But this thing also sets up our main conflict for what I believe will be the rest of the season. And I think this is what's going to be the format for the rest of the season. That every episode, or every other episode anyway, Kara is going to have to track down the criminals from the Phantom Zone and either defeat them, re-imprison them. Hell, maybe the department will end up locking them up and try to use them, for interrogation purposes, for research purposes, whatever have you. But Kara is actually working with this department now, so that'll sort of be her main goal throughout the season. The other thing that I want to mention is that, once again, when I brought up the whole status quo, the thing about Kara's life, that she's an administrative assistant to Cat Grant, who, for the record, I'm not going to lie, guys, Cat is my favorite character so far in the series. Her attitude, her demeanor, yes, of course, yeah, she's the stereotypical pretentious, highbrow, high-nosed boss lady, right? She's pretty much trying to recapture the Meryl Streep, the Devil Wears Prada persona, okay? But here's the thing, her attitude and her dialogue is just so good. I died laughing in the scene where she's meeting with Kara, and Kara finds out that she's going to go ahead and fire a chunk of the staff from the Tribune, the company's paper. And Grant responds with, it's not that I don't see that frown, I just don't care enough to ask while it's there. And I'm like, damn. And then the comment she makes about Kara's the color of her pants being too loud, like that's sort of like that one. And yeah, it could be because it is very the Devil Wear Prada-ish, because I like that movie a lot, and the dialogue is very similar to that. I don't know. Kat's whole attitude, her demeanor, her swagger, if you will, I love it. She's my favorite character on the show so far. I love her. I think the actress performing her does a great job. The other characters, we get introduced to Kara's best friend, who also works, who's also her co-worker, and of course we've already seen them. I can already see them laying the groundwork for a romantic relationship between them. Typical, right? Because, it's a female character, of course her best friend. If he's of the opposite sex, there has to be a relationship there. But he's also one of the few characters that actually learns her secret. He's the first one. The other surprise in the episode is the arrival of Jimmy Olsen in National City, which is the location of the series. And we find out, once again, another scenario where they're sort of laying the groundwork for a potential romance. But also we find out by the end of the episode that no, Jimmy knew who she was the entire time, and that he was actually sent there by Clark to sort of keep an eye on her. Alright. So, one thing I want to address right here and now when we're talking about, once again, yes, I have to discuss the gender roles and the gender issues in this episode, and I also have to discuss the romance thing in this episode. And I'm going to tell you why I have to discuss these things, guys. I know you guys are tired of hearing me talk about these things, but let's face it, the show called attention to them. Number one, when we're talking about gender roles, of course, the show is going to address the idea that, she's a superheroine, so of course she has to have a chip on her shoulder, right? Now, that's not to say that Kara doesn't have a chip on her shoulder, but I found it interesting how the writers use Kara as the window character to address these issues. These were not things that came from other characters. No, Kara's the one that calls attention to these things, and she learns from other characters certain things about gender roles and gender issues. So number one, the idea that, you named her Supergirl. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't name her Supergirl. Why? Because the title of girl makes her seem lesser. And then, of course, it's Kat who tells her, no, she's a girl because she's female. She's a girl because that's what I want to call her. She's a girl because that name has a ring to it and it can sell. This idea, this inferiority complex, this idea that the title of girl means anything less than what she is, no, that is a problem with you, not with the name. Hit it on the nose, knocked it out in one scene. I loved it. I was like, yes. Also, I also like how the little tongue-in-cheek comment about the whole costume thing, which that clearly was a commentary on the comic book industry and how all of their superheroines are always scantily clad and they're dressed to be sexy and this, that, and the other. Kara hops into that tight skin, shorty, hot pants, short outfit. She's literally in that outfit all of, I think, 10 seconds, and then no, we're done with that. Let's see. Okay. Here, those two things, when it comes to gender roles and when it comes to, the gender stereotypes and things of that nature, those are the two things I think the episode got right. What the episode got wrong, however, is what I fear they are setting up later in the season. And this is what I mean. The deeper things, the things about the narrative when you're writing, characters of different gender, characters of different ethnicity. Here are the things. Number one, huge issue I have. Why does the main villain have to be female? The reveal at the end of the episode when we found out that apparently our main antagonist for the season is Kara's aunt, her mother's twin sister, who for the record is an original character. Allura never had a twin sister in the comics, so this is an original character they made for the series. Why does she need a female villain? That is something I have a problem with, because it was the same mistake that the Supergirl live action film from 92-93 did, where, because it's a female protagonist, we have to have a female antagonist. No, you do not. The idea that, this is going to be an action series, and of course we can't have a girl fighting a man. Well, you did it in the pilot. What's the problem? No. It was a huge letdown, especially since like halfway through the episode when we found out that the criminals from the Phantom Zone were organized and that they were actually working for someone, and they referred to a superior as the general. The second they said that, I'm like, ooh, General Zod is in this show. Yes. And then we find out, no, it's Kara's aunt. Huge letdown, huge missed opportunity. Now, here's the thing. I can go on and on and on and on about the different, why just because she's a girl does not immediately dictate that you got to do this or you got to do that. Guys, you guys have heard me talk about this at length in other reviews before. It's one of the things I think the pilot got wrong, okay? Also, once again, touching up on the romance thing, I already see them trying to set up some type of love triangle. I can see it now. Just because she is... Now, granted, keep this in mind, too. The creators of this show, the producers, the same ones behind Flash and Arrow. But stop with the love triangles. Please stop with the love triangles, okay? Now, here's the thing. It's one of the things I can't say is a gender-exclusive bit, because they do it in Flash and Arrow, and the main characters of those shows are male. But the love triangles, they gotta stop. They gotta stop. That's all I'm gonna say on that. Okay, so other things I want to talk about. All right, one final note I want to make on the pilot, and then I'm gonna get out here, because I know if you guys have watched this review up to this point, I certainly appreciate it, but also I'd be surprised. So if you've been watching this far into the review, please comment with up and away. Final thing I want to talk about on that note, Superman and his presence in this universe and his presence in the show. I had already read an article about a month or so ago where they said that Superman will be present in the universe. he will be present in the universe, but he won't necessarily appear on the series. The idea is that they want to use him kind of like they use the President in Veep, the HBO original series, where he's around and you might get a glimpse of him here and there, but he never fully appears on camera. Here's the thing. I think that's a missed opportunity. And this is why I say that. You know, the interesting thing about dealing with Supergirl, once again, one of the most interesting things about that character and about her mythology, about her source material, is the fact that she is Clark's older cousin, and yet at times and in certain stories and adaptations, she is the student. She is the apprentice. Clark is the one who mentors her. We got that to some extent in Smallville, and actually we even got a mutual mentorship in Smallville, where there was some things that Clark was teaching Kara about and some things that Kara was teaching Clark about, which I really dug. Here's the thing, you guys know, because I mentioned it in my Flash and Arrow reviews, I'm a sucker for a good mentor-student story. I'm a sucker for a good mentor-protege relationship. And I think that Supergirl could have had one of the best ones on television. The fact that Superman won't be there to mentor Kara, especially since her main objective, her main arc in this show will be learning to become a superhero. The fact that they are using Clark as that ideal, that idol, that model, that thing for her to inspire to be, and he's not physically present in the series, I think is a major missed opportunity. And you guys can't tell me, I mean, come on, writers. I know you guys probably don't want to put Superman in this because, of course, we have Superman in the live-action films and whatnot. But you guys can't tell me Tom Welling wouldn't love to reprise that role in this universe, on this show. Make it happen, guys, please. Man, if I could see Tom come back as Superman in this show, a full-fledged Superman. Oh, that would be so awesome. So anyway, so all in all, my overall thoughts on the pilot, like I said, a good pilot, what I would probably call a prototypical pilot. We got introduced to everyone we needed to get introduced to, and we got our plot set up, we got our conflict, we got all the essential information we need in this one episode so that we can just hit the ground running from here on out. It's the same thing they did with Flash, with the Flash pilot, where it's like, bam, the entire origin, all in the pilot. So that's good. As for my thoughts on the rest of the season, I'm actually going to reserve those for a bit, because I want to see what they do with the Phantom Zone criminals and whatnot, and I want more information on Kara's aunt before I start speculating on what could potentially happen later on in the season. So, that's going to do it for my review of the Supergirl pilot. I want to thank you all for joining me again this week, and in the comments below, leave your thoughts on the pilot, as well as some of your expectations, predictions, or speculations on what we could potentially see later on in the season. Tomorrow, you guys will be getting my Flash episode review, and then Friday, Arrow episode review. Also, final note, my Daredevil review is coming. I'm not going to make a promise on when, just because I haven't kept up my end of the bargain on that, but it is coming. It's definitely going to happen. So just keep an eye out for it. And with that being said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, signing off, and until next time, peace.